Welcome to The Cleaning, a podcast about Apple TV Plus's show Silo. We're covering season 2. My name is Catfish, and with me, as always, is someone who also hands me food covered in rat poison without warning me ahead of time. It's Bubba!
Catfish, let me tell you, I want to see you suffer your own mistake of trusting me eating that food from rat poison. Hey guys, we're talking season 2, episode 6, Barricades. Bernard enacts a plan to root out Knox, Shirley, and Walker. Billings takes a stand. Solo saves Juliette's life and wants something in return. Boy, that little brief there spoils that Juliette and Solo are going to appear in this episode.
Yes, but Bubba, they're only going to appear for slightly longer than it took you to read that sentence about them.
I stumbled a bit. This week, just letting you know, we normally do our book talk spoiler kind of section at the end. In this one, there's not going to be any book talk, but it is going to be spoilers. There's some spoiler articles out there about the show.
What?
And we're going to talk about those. You can drop out. We'll have it at the end, and we'll give you lots of warnings. But Catfish, we're past the halfway point of season 2. What is your rating out of 10 for this episode, Barricades?
Bubba, I gave this episode 9 triple S's.
Triple S's?
Yes, we all know what triple S's means. It means Sheriff Sapp sacks up.
Wait.
Billings took an L last week from Patrick Kennedy. I'll tell you when you do this for me. He takes an L this week from Walker.
He does.
I'll tell you when you do this for me. But finally, he sacks up with Kennedy by doing the thing I told him to do last week. Now,
he listened to you. That was good.
Finally, after he took the bullet out. I'm sorry. I tell you what, you tell me the information, and then the bullet comes out. Now, Bubba.
Yeah.
I'm not being a jackass, but I think my rating was really improved.
Wow.
By there being so little of Juliette's story. I'm not being captured by Juliette's story right now. I thought we got lots of action tonight. Lukas got a very improbable and also probably more life-threatening than the mine glow-up tonight. I dug it. So, Bubba, who cares about me? Nobody. What about your rating?
Well, Catfish, 9 out of 10. That may be the highest. Have you ever gone 10 out of 10 on this show?
No. That's probably the highest I've given any episode.
That's great. Listeners, I liked this episode, but I'm still giving it the same rating I gave last week's episode. Admittedly, this time I'm going to give it 7 double Fs out of 10.
I hope you remember to be double F with this rating. That is family friendly. Okay, what's your double Fs?
It's fighting fake out. I thought we were going to get a real fight. Instead, we just moved the barricade a bit. Let me say, this episode was good. You see tension building. You see things building. I really think that we needed this episode maybe 2 episodes ago, by a minimum 4, episode 4 of this season really show that the ball is rolling. But this ball is rolling. We are going up the silo or we are going down the silo to tenseness. I loved it. I can't wait to our judicial debate this week, Catfish, to find out how you felt about the Triple B.
Triple B?
Baby Bernard bawling. Come on, Bernard, you're saying Billings manned up. Bernard, he had a corpse monologue, which is always so good. And so are you still on Team Bernard? That's our judicial debate this week. 7 out of 10.
Let me think about it.
7 out of 10, mainly because we deserve a real fight. We've gone through 6 hours. We deserve a real fight. And the fact that they pulled away from that fight, it knocked my rating down. I was going to go 8 out of 10, but then the fact that it's like, you can't treat us like this. You can't put a barricade up and stop us from traveling up the silo. So we're going to make sure that you give us a bit more room to barricade us and stop us from moving up the silo. I didn't understand it. I wanted a fight. 7 out of 10, still good. They got what some of this lovely stuff.
They got exactly what they needed. They have their own fresh food. They don't need to have people rain compost on them from above. Okay? I mean, come on. That is all they needed. They can't fight all the judicial raiders right now. Who knows? But they've got food.
Well, how about
they can
just
hang
these?
out.
How about there's a fight to push them up, and then suddenly they create their own barricade to say, hey, you're not coming down below 122. Instead, it was just a stale, like there was no fighting, right? There wasn't actually any fighting. There wasn't a single fight. There wasn't a single punch thrown.
Well,
7 out of 10 for me, 9 out of 10 for you.
You know what, Bubba? You maybe are convincing me a little bit that that Amundsen gave up a little too quick here.
Didn't some of those raiders coming down have guns?
Yeah.
And I know Knox talked tough. And I loved him talking tough. But I just needed something. We've gone 6 hours. Give me something. The order, the book Bernard read out of said, in the event of a failed cleaning, prepare for war. We should have read it closer. It might have been prepare for war in a couple of days. Bernard says to Camille, hey, did you take these prisoners a couple of days ago? I was like, a couple of days ago? Wasn't that yesterday? Anyway, you're getting me focused on the stuff that kept me at 7 out of 10 instead of talking about the stuff that I really love.
Bubba, look, listen, you know what? War isn't all about fighting. War is also about tactical retreat. That is part of war. Prepare for war, which includes tactical retreat.
Do you tactically retreat without any fight, without any pushback?
Yeah, that's the tactical part about it is you've retreated without losing any people so you can muster your forces for later. I'm just giving you a hard time, Bubba.
You're Amundsen, and I'm Knox.
Listening to you talk, I'm persuaded a little bit by your thoughts. I'm not going to change my rating, but you know what?
9 out of 10 is great.
You've swung me over a little bit to your side. You just pessimist. Anyway, I said no one cares what I think. Also, right. Bubba, more importantly,
nobody should care what I think.
No, and I include myself in that. So we want to know what you think. Listen, contact us on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on YouTube. We are Double PHQ Media. That's the word double, the letter P, the letter H, the letter Q. That is how you can get to us. If you are watching or listening to this on YouTube, that everyone's doing now, please like, subscribe, send us comments. We have been getting on this show this year so many great comments. You really help improve this. And if you subscribe, then it's a win-win for you, because what happens is more people listen to the show, and then more people get to hear your great comments about this show. And people can know, like, okay, I'm just going to skip to the last 20 minutes of this show and listen to the good stuff, the viewers' comments.
That's what we should do too. Catfish, real quickly, do you want to talk about how this show, Apple TV, has officially said it's renewed for season 3 and season 4? Booyah!
I love it. 4 seasons and no movie. Let's do this.
Listeners, if you enjoy this silliness, we encourage you to check out all our podcasts across a dozen audio podcast feeds. On YouTube, we cover so many things. Here in 2024, we actually covered less shows than we normally did, but we talked about the 3-Body Problem, The Acolyte, House of the Dragon, Babylon Berlin, Only Murders in the Building, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, Moonflower Murders, and now we're covering Silo. And then we have this great bit of feedback, Catfish.
Yes, Sayali Marath, and I've really blown your name, and I apologize for that. Said, please do a Severance podcast.
We hear you, and we wish we could. We are just, spoiler alert, we actually have other jobs, which we're worse at than this, which shows you how bad we are.
That is true, but we just get paid so much more for that job.
I know, that's true.
Bubba, it's a great show. I also want to pitch to our listeners. I saw the free preview of the first 2 episodes of The Agency on Showtime. That is also a great show. Sayali, what you're missing out on here is that Bubba is so good at sniffing things out. That's why he does the Only Murders in the Building. He does all the murder shows. He would be a great person to do the Severance podcast because he would have so many ideas of what's going on. It would be great. So if I can I'm just going to make a plea out. More listeners, beg Bubba to do a Severance podcast.
I'm going to start working for Lumen so that you'll forget that when you stop podcasting, Catfish.
All right, so
guys,
what
in
podcast?
2025,
Yeah, okay, let's hear it.
In 2025, currently we probably won't do a Severance podcast. Maybe you can convince us.
Severance.
But in the Severance podcast, but maybe you guys can convince us.
Yeah.
But in the year 2025,
right,
our buddies Matt and Priscilla are going to be talking about The Wheel of Time Season 3, which debuts on March 13th.
Wait, Bubba, we're not doing that one?
You aren't.
No,
you.
Okay. So we've got time for a Severance podcast.
No, I mean, plus, Catfish, one thing I know you're looking forward to, Andor returns on April 22nd.
Got it. Got it.
We've got Only Murders in the Building. Season 5 is coming out in 2025. A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, another Song of Ice and Fire HBO series coming out. And we may be the only podcast to cover all 3 seasons of The Terror when The Terror, the Devil, and Silver comes out. That'll be the real sign we've gone insane.
I love it. No, we're definitely going to cover that in addition to the Severance podcast.
Lumen, take me away. Hey, Catfish, we ask every week, is it better here in the real world where people can give us likes and comments on podcasts, or is it better in the silo? We always say, hey, listeners, what do you think?
But you know what? Last week, Bubba, we specifically begged for this section to have some answers in this section. And so we got some, Bubba. Let me read the first one. Cam Shay 23 on Threads, our not old, but our longtime listener, Harley Camille, says, silo or outside in our time? I want air conditioning and heating options at all times. Silo. And can I hide in the silo for the next 4 years and then decide?
Oh, man, that is pretty smart. But I also love how Camille, she wrote it like you talk, Catfish. You always imply you're going one way and then zag and
It's so good. It's so good.
Excellent. Wayne Rogers, another great feedback listener, said, for weeks now, I have tried to find any advantage to living in the silo, other than the protection it offers from the wasteland outside. Wayne writes, I'm just fine living topside.
Now, Wayne, you don't like free food falling from the sky? The answer is clearly silo.
All right. And Jacob said, hey, Catfish and Bubba, life is better outside the silo because of triple P's.
Triple P's.
Pepsi, pizza, and peeps.
Hey, all right.
We haven't seen the entire farm, Jacob. Who's to say they aren't making peeps in the silo?
I mean, they might have wings. They probably got chickens, lots of wings, Bubba. All right, Bubba, what is your answer? I already gave you mine tonight. Free food falling from the sky, silo. For this episode 6 of season 2, based on what you saw in this episode.
Yeah.
Silo or here?
Well, in some ways, my answer tonight based on this episode is that they're both kind of screwed. Why? Whether you're here in the States or in the United States, I should say, or in the silo, when you really need a cop to come help, they're too busy on some stupid side quest. It's the same. #same.
All right, Bubba. That's your answer. If you want to give us answers about episode 6 or just overall, we are still taking more answers to that question. So always. I love it, Bubba. Let's have it.
All right. Catfish, this sounds crazy, and we've been doing it several weeks, but why don't we go ahead and talk about what's happening in abandoned, destroyed Silo 17 with Juliette and Solo, because there really isn't much to it. It's one scene. I'm not even sure it's really a scene, because I'm not sure it even lasted 3 minutes. Juliette wakes up. Solo, what I think is interesting to talk about is he gave her antibiotics, and he claims he made them. Catfish.
I mean, it is a good thing she was unconscious when he gave them to her, because would you be like, hey, I can hear some homemade antibiotics?
Solo is a double W.
Double W.
Walter White, he's making drugs, baby. He's like, if these antibiotics didn't work, I've got the blue meth that'll cheer you up.
He's like, there's 2 things I know about in life, and that is elephants and antibiotics.
Heck yeah. Now, he's also not afraid to, hey, I saved your life. It's blackmail time.
Perfect.
I saved your life. You saved mine. You want that helmet? You want that suit? Help me fix the water pump. He says you can waste your time arguing with me, and thank God we didn't see several scenes of that, or you could start thinking how you're going to fix that pump, Catfish.
Get in there. Look, don't even wait for the wound to heal to expose that wound to whatever brackish water you're going to have to dive in. Let's do this.
Right. Solo is very quick to volunteer her to go do it. Why does he go do something? Oh, I'm the only one who can press this foot pump. I mean, yeah. I say, and I guess I'm choosing what stories we're going to cover. I think next we really should cover Billings, Hanks, and Dr. Nichols saving Patrick Kennedy storyline, just because it feels the most separate. Like almost every other storyline was about the down deep striking back and the reaction to them striking back. So you ready to jump down to Billings, Hank, and Dr. Nichols?
Let's do it.
Now, Patrick Kennedy, I guess I have to say it, listeners on the Cleaning Podcast bingo card, just say, why is Patrick Kennedy still alive is mentioned in the podcast. So cover, put a mark on that square. I said it. He's got the shadow doctor, Catfish. He doesn't have the real doctor. He's got a doctor, Shadow. He doesn't seem too confident about this. Now, Patrick Kennedy, like all of America, he wants a lot of drugs. But the shadow doc, like your mom, only has aspirin.
Don't forget, Bubba, he is also a snob about shadows, even though he is like, damn it, I hate the ACA. I hate Obamacare. But where's my free medical care?
Hashtag America. Is that what you say?
That's it. Hashtag America.
Now, Billings, he's also got a storyline of, okay, I'm here. I might as well arrest these people who've been accused of murdering Judge Meadows. So his first step in this is, I'm going to go confront Walker. Oh, no, his first step in this is not even to do that. It's to write his message to his wife to say, any chance you can get a real doctor down here? This guy's got a bullet wound I need to heal.
Bubba, of all the things that have happened on all the episodes of the Silo, this was the least shocking thing to happen ever. It's like, finally, we get the doctor involved in this damn show. Bubba, also, though, I just have to say, I know that's the only way he was able to communicate with his wife, but does he really think that his communications are safe and secure?
Wonderful question, but that was the only way. Bernard is too busy to catch that, and maybe the people in IT are too busy to catch it. His wife, in the past, I've been tough on Kathleen Billings.
Yeah.
I've not liked at the times where she really does put her family above everything else. She's like, husband, you're going to do this. But this time, I thought Kathleen Billings was smart. She came up with a great way to get past the blockade. Hey, we're having a baby with the C-section. This is brilliant. Now, why don't people have radios so they can validate this stuff? I mean, these are judicial raiders. They don't have radios to validate it. Who cares?
Well,
I love his wife being smart and tricking people.
Plus, Bubba, it seemed to me that it seemed to be played pretty much like she was making that up. And that just goes to show these judicial raiders need to retake their pact test so they don't get hornswoggled like this. But the one thing that was, and it's just a minor thing, unbelievable. All those people up against the barricade, they're like, we want through. But okay, we'll let these guys come the other direction.
Right. We're starving down here. There isn't enough food to feed the 800 of us. Oh, 2 more? Sure. Okay, 2 more. Yeah, you come in. Oh, there's still not enough food.
They have the fast pass.
Now, Dr. Nichols, you want him involved.
Right.
He's got to do something. He is great. He's a good doctor. He pulls out the bullet.
Bubba. You're like we're halfway through season 2. He's got to do something, for God's sakes. And he does.
He does. He told off Bernard. I loved that last week. I love seeing him being a competent doctor.
He's becoming radicalized, Bubba.
Now, Patrick Kennedy, after he's got this bullet out and he's got some drugs in him, he wants to stay silent. He doesn't want to tell Billings what he knows. Billings, suddenly I thought, oh my God, Billings, who follows the pack, is he going to torture this out of Patrick Kennedy? He's like, honey, take the baby, get out of here. Dr. Nichols, do you mind stepping out?
Bubba, this is the thing too, right? You had written this in the notes, and it was the same thing I thought. I wanted Billings' wife to, when he doesn't talk, I wanted her to just, they see that thing in the old cop shows or whatever, where she presses her fingers into his bullet wound. Talk, you son of a bitch, talk!
Well, I thought Billings was going to do it. He sends everybody out, even Deputy Hank. He's like, Deputy Hank, you don't want to see this. And so I'm like, Billings is about to break the pact and go medieval on this guy. Holy smokes. And he takes this chair and he slams this chair and then he's figures a way to not torture it out of him.
Right,
He's like,
right. He says exactly what he should have said last week. It's so crazy. But we had to get all these people together. I mean,
why couldn't he tell that in front of everybody?
Yeah, right.
He's like,
right, exactly.
Honey, leave. I don't want to hear you saying I'm going to turn this guy over to Sims. Kind of like I'm pretty sure the pack wants me to.
It is a complete fake out. But okay, fine.
Yeah, okay, fine. The good point is it's getting us to a fun place. And what does Patrick Kennedy give up? He gives up everything. He gives a previously on recap to Billings to say, hey, remember when all the computers went dark? It's because Juliette had my hacker friend and I put something on everything in the silo, every computer in the silo. It's like the page you showed me from the Georgia book, only 1,000,000 times more beautiful. Now I saw this and I thought, oh no. Billings, are you going to suddenly suspect that it's beautiful outside? And I was like, oh, no, please, this will be terrible. But we really don't see Billings react to that. Kennedy's like, when you hear this, you're going to wish you didn't hear it. Did you have a feeling of how Billings really did react to that, hearing that, Catfish?
No, I almost, and Bubba, this is the beautiful thing about me. I had kind of forgotten what Patrick Kennedy knew. And when he said it, I was completely underwhelmed. I was like, as Billings, I'd be like, I guess I'm not really sorry that I heard that. Like, he makes it seem like I am gonna blow your mind, bro. And as a viewer, I was like, mind and not even slightly perturbed.
Well, that's because you did take the memory wipeout drug, Catfish. So it's okay. It's okay. Now, Billings goes to Walker, and she asks him the question that I swear all the viewers are asking. You're the sheriff of the whole silo. You just heard there's a battle on the stairs, and you really have no curiosity about it at all. Billings maybe shadowed Juliette a bit too closely because when things are going down, he doesn't care. But he finds out, he's like, well, Carla's probably been taken into seclusion by these judicial raiders. Finally, Walker says like 2 lines. He's like, tell me what happened. Well, this is what happened. And he's like, oh, okay, so I did all this to find out the 2 lines. Billings talks to his wife. This is a bit of an interesting development. He's like, I haven't taken these herbs to calm my nerves and prevent the syndrome. And she's like, dude, it's been several days. You don't have the syndrome. I don't know what changed. His wife says, maybe you have. Catfish. What do you think about this? Is the syndrome something that can actually be cured by taking some time off on a side quest?
I thought that you were going to say, and maybe I'm completely off here, that somehow he was convinced from a long time ago to take these herbs, and it's the herbs that's causing the syndrome.
Well, I admittedly did have that thought too, but it seems more like now that he has a mission, now that he has a purpose, and it could be symbolically, maybe the show is even like, now that I'm awakened to possibly discovering the truth, that's what's curing me. I mean, I'm throwing something out. That
sounds like some real metaphysical horse shit, Bubba.
Oh, come on.
I finally have a purpose. Oh, no.
Exactly right. Thank you.
Yeah, that was also very sarcastic.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Purpose.
Well, okay. Why do you tell me? Why do you think he's not had the syndrome anymore?
I just said it. The herbs are causing the syndrome.
Okay. All right. How about we're going to end this bit of the storyline with a very touching scene between Juliette's father and her makeup mother, Walker. And apparently, it's getting around that Walker gave this good heat tape, and that's how Juliette survived. I mean, Nichols finds out that somehow off screen. And then Nichols asks the big question to her. He says, do you think Juliette's still alive? And Walker says, no, I don't see any way. And he's like, why give us false hope? And she pretty much says, I know Juliette didn't want all of us to see her dying on that hill. And of course, if she had died on that hill, anytime you look at the camera, look at the monitor from the camera, you'd see her corpse on the hill. So that explains a question we've asked on a previous podcast of why did Walker do this? And I think that's actually a great reason.
So Juliette never said, you want me on that hill. You need me on that hill. No?
No. Well, I think that's a good answer. It's still a little wobbly in my mind, but I think that's probably the best answer they could give.
I agree.
Do you like these two great actors, Harriet Walter, who plays Walker, been in a million things. She's great. We have Ian Glenn. We all know him from Game of Thrones, but he's been in a million things too, as Dr. Nichols. I kind of think these two should have more scenes together. Good.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't want to say anything bad. I just am not.
Oh, okay.
I'm just, it's a little Jersey rough for me, her character. It's just
I got it. I could see that.
It's a little, yeah.
Well, how about this?
Yeah.
Her character, in addition to everything else that's going on, her character has a goal. I want to be reunited with the love of my life, Carla. Let's have some silo speculation. What do you think's going to happen there?
Reunited and it feels so good. I don't want to sing anymore, otherwise we'll have to pay for it.
Oh, no, please.
Reunited and it's understood.
It's like peaches and those herbs that are giving Billings the syndrome. You got to be old to get that joke.
Oh,
if it
man.
Even is a joke.
That's right in our target group. About to be retired.
So then really the bulk of this episode, the scenes that make this episode so good are the up top dealing with the rebellion and with everything going on, and Shirley and Knox and the down deep trying to overcome being starved out. What do you want to talk about first? The up top or Knox and Shirley's session?
Oh, let's do Knox and Shirley, because actually I think I enjoyed the up top stuff more.
Well, yeah, I think it's certainly good. It's almost like we know more about Bernard and Sims. They've had more screen time than Knox and Shirley have, mainly because of season 1, Juliette left Knox and Shirley, and they were kind of out of the show for a bit.
Good.
So setting it up, the episode begins with people screaming, let them through, meaning let people through, these porters through, let's get some food here. And the raiders are holding back all deliveries to the down deep, Catfish.
Here come the tariffs.
Boy. Oh yeah, and they're gonna go over about as well here as they do there. Shirley is patching up Knox, and she's mentioning probably what everybody thought. How did you survive this last week? How did we both survive it? They're there with Walker, and Knox says something that I think is slightly crazy. He's like, listen, we'll get Carla back. Aim high, Knox, I love it. Walker's pretty much telling him, there's no way out of this. We're all enemies. We are the enemy of the power people of the silo now. And so, Now this wheelchair leader, the character's name is Mark, and he and people in his area have been doing what I assume they've been doing. I forget if I mentioned this on the podcast or in just comments I leave to people on YouTube, but this is exactly what I thought. It's like, hey, anybody comes here, ask for weapons, don't make them. Make them for me. So here we go. They've got, if this is the board game Clue, you're pretty much going to say, well, they were only killed with either a wrench or a lead pipe. Those are the weapons they've got. But they look pretty badass. I kind of like them.
They do. I mean, he thinks only 10 of us are going to get killed. You guys got guns. We got wrenches. But hey, also, look at our fancy armor.
Heck yeah. Yeah, no aim for our heads, not our Once again, we have tension. Why did I mentioned a lot of the problems I had with this bit of the story, but let's talk about this is it. The whole silo is on edge. Juliette just went out for a cleaning. It's a failed cleaning. Now the judge has been murdered. They're accusing us. They're accusing our people. And now somebody here on the down deep is putting rat poison in what food we have. Somebody in the down deep is working with Bernard. Ooh.
Hell yes, somebody wants a promotion.
I want to be Bernard's shadow. The best way to do it is to put blue rat poison in everything. But the big point is this gets the down deep more united than ever. Now, there's a bit of there's a bit of dissension early on. This mom is like, hey, are you going to really make our children starve when all we have to do is give up you? Catfish, what do you think about this? This is a true moral thing that societies really have to go to. It's like, I hate oppression. I hate these people. I hate these rules. I hate these tariffs. But to oppose them when I still have to go to my job, I still have to get my wage, I've got to feed my family, what do you do? What did you think of this almost convention speech that Walker has to give to convince people, yeah, we could give up Knox and Shirley, Oh, we could? Let's do it. No. We could give them up.
Right, and then you're just, are you going to feel any better? Are you going to feel any better? Bernard, you're still going to be living under the thumb of Bernard. And what they should have said was, yes, but we'll still be living. But Walker says, let your children starve. That's essentially what she said. Solidarity, let your children starve. And Bubba, crazily, they agree. Now, if I was Walker, maybe I would make that pitch after they were like, oh, wait, we actually do have some food.
Oh, I see what you're saying. After people drop food, then make the pitch.
I mean, the food comes out right afterwards. Am I wrong?
It's pretty much. It's
pretty much like, let's starve. Yes, we'll all starve. Oh, and here's some food.
Come on. The couple of things. I love how admittedly it's both Shirley and Walker, but they both call him, listen, Bernard this, Bernard that. Like, Bernard was the head of IT. Did everybody get on a first name basis with him when he became mayor?
Right.
He's not even mayor, right? He's supposed to be temp mayor. It's like,
well, not only that, but if they would know him at the mayor, right? That's what you would call somebody.
Yeah.
You wouldn't call somebody by their first name, or you call them by their last name. Maybe everybody just goes by their first name. Man. Bernard.
Hey, Bubba, Catfish. I love it. Now, this character, Teddy, he's one of the down deepers. He brings the stuff in, and Knox points out, not everything that comes down the trash chute is trash.
Now, Bubba, I'm going to
coming
disagree.
Down with a message that says Juliette lives. Oh, wait, you disagree? Not everything that does come down the trash chute is trash? What do you mean?
I'm going to say, even if it doesn't start as trash, by the time it gets down to the bottom, it is trash. Also, quite pulped. Yeah. Anybody want some mushy carrots?
Well, I was going to say, did you see the kid's face when he looked at that carrot he had to eat? He was like, Mom, let's just starve and fight Bernard. This sucks.
That kid's like, I knew it was the right move to put rat poison on all the food.
That kid did it. Oh, no. No. Oh, my goodness. So, okay.
Yeah.
They're going to stand up to this, right? We are going to stand up to this. We're not going to do it. And Walker is daydreaming about Carla. Once again, she has this message. She has her message. But Knox, he and Shirley have a plan. They bring their troops with their, lead pipes, with their giant wrenches. They bring them up to the blockade. And the judicial raiders at the blockade don't even have guns. Like, they don't have anything, really. They're like, oh, boy, somebody reach out to Odmundson. Odmundson, he really seems like, what's the best way to describe him other than to say he's probably going to be nominated by Trump to be a cabinet member, if you know what I mean, with his qualifications here. But he, what did you think when he heard that? I put that he started sharding.
Well, the other thing is, his buddy in the surveillance booth, who we've seen before, is like, sir, I have something to tell you. Now, it was somebody's mistake. I'm pretty sure Amundsen was like, I'm busy. I think it was the guy who told him it was his fault not to say, well, I know you are, but I got some really important news. So, you know what? At least that guy's got an excuse. You told me to be quiet.
Right. So what he explains is that, oh, snap, the down deepers have something that cuts through concrete. Now, boy, the silo, there's so many things you're not allowed to have in the silo, including magnification up to a certain point. But you're allowed to have something that can cut through cement. I suppose you really do need it for emergencies or something. But holy smokes, the down deepers are cutting their way up 18 flights of stairs, man. This is incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Woo. Now, Odmundson comes down. There's kind of like 2 points to this. He comes down. He sees the blockade. The Knox has had his troops fall back a bit. And Amundsen's like, what's going on? His raider. Well, it sounds like drilling. Not really. It sounds like drilling. Boy, Amundsen, not too good. The down deep crew of Teddy and Shirley have made it up. They're on the same level as the raiders. What Knox's plan was that drilling is to build a winch so they could literally rip the blockade off the stairwell. Hell yeah, boy, this is tense. This is exciting. Camille, because her husband said, hey, we can stir the pot a bit, but it can't hurt our son. So she goes down in her judicial raider outfit to try to, I guess have some thought in this. and then it's tense, then it's good. And I love the standoff. I love Knox telling him, you kill 10 of us, but we will kill all of you and take the stairs. Hell yes! Hell yes! And then it's like, you put up a blockade, you can't do this, unless it's just a bit higher on the stairwell, okay? Peace out. And that just drove me crazy. You talk about it, Kevin.
Tactical retreat. Well, I mean, we already covered this up top. You've sort of convinced me a little bit. Amundsen, I mean, Bubba, the funny thing is, you always keep mentioning your frustration with Bernard. Why hasn't he killed this person? Why hasn't he killed that person?
Well, it was Sims who should have killed Patrick Kennedy.
Okay,
but sure.
But what I'm saying, if Bernard killed everybody who did stupid things, there'd be nobody left up top. But Amundsen definitely should take a big L on this one and not just get yelled at by Bernard. You know what, Amundsen? If I was Bernard, I'd be fitting him for a miner's outfit right about now.
Now, while we didn't get any action on the stairwell, Knox got some action down in the mechanical headquarters where he and Shirley have a makeout section. Catfish, what do you think of this new love connection? They were button heads many times at the end of last season and the beginning of this season, but that maybe has just brought them closer.
Well, now they're going to be button uglies, Bubba. I like this couple because, as they were sitting across me trying to kiss each other, I'm like, these guys, they have the same hairstyle. They're a good match.
They are a good match. They're both ready. They're both for it. And then they get confronted for their crimes by Billings.
Their crimes of making out.
Right. He's like, their crimes against hairstyles. Now Billings comes in. What happened? They tell him, once again, the two-line summary. Hey, we didn't kill the judge. We were framed. Will you swear on the pack that's true? Billings, are you really a sheriff? That's all you're going to do? Like, how about bring them in for questioning? Billings radios Bernard. Okay, there could be some subtle manipulation, kind of subtle tricks that Billings will do. He didn't do it too well because Bernard had probably the funniest line the show has ever had. F me, I've just lost the sheriff. Chef's kiss. That was brilliant. Billings is trying to say, hey, I'm not on anybody's side. I stand with the law, but still, can't you bring them in for questioning? It's like...
Well, Bubba, listen, the reason why he's down here to ask questions is all because suspicion about the truth of when Juliette went out. And if Juliette didn't ask to go out, then the people who are lying are Bernard and Sims. So he can't take them to, and now that he, if he's going to take this as possible, not even true, but possible that the judge was dead when they got there, then he cannot deliver them to Bernard or Sims. I don't know what he thinks.
But he could take them to the Down Deep deputy station, right? He could be like, guys, I'm going to leave you here. There's the barricade. He could do it if he wanted to.
Oh,
he could even say it's for your safety.
Well, yeah, but presumably they're safe where they are now, behind the barricade. Nobody behind the barricade wants them except for that little kid who wants to poison them.
Who's going to rat poison him, yeah. What do you guys think? Hey, we're talking about ourselves. We're pitching this. Did you give this a 9 out of 10 like Catfish did? Did you still feel a bit like you got to give us more oomph like I did 7 out of 10? As we always say, who cares what we think? Tell us what you think. Go down in those comments if you're on YouTube. Let us know. You guys give the greatest comments. We want to hear it. If you're on social media, like Camille, like Patman, like all our friends on social media, at PHQ on every social media platform, tell us there as well. Do you like what Billings done so far? And then, we always go through this and save our favorite section of the show for last, but tell us this too. What was your favorite section and storyline this week? So let's get to the up top. We've got Bernard, Sims, we've got Lukas. It starts off up top. Bernard knows there's these people screaming, hey, let us pass the barricade. And Bernard's statement to Amundsen is, hey, do you realize after only 9 missed meals, that's all that separates a functioning society from chaos? And I think that is a beautiful, wonderful, ice-cold line from Bernard. And yet at the same time, I have to be honest, I heard Bernard say that, and I loved it as a delicious, juicy line for him to say. But I also thought, Bernard, aren't you trying to tamp down the chaos? Is it the idea of like there's a bit of chaos because there was a failed cleaning and you should find ways to tamp it down? Or I'm confused, Catfish, because at times it feels like Bernard, especially in his morgue monologue, at times he wants to tamp it down and he feels terrible about what's happening, but at other times he's ratcheting up the tension. What says you?
All right, Bubba, this is what I think. He's doing the things that he thinks he's supposed to do based on the instructions that he's gotten. And it sounds to me that at least previous instructions, based on what we learned before, is blame mechanical, wipe out mechanical, and start over again. And so I don't think you can do that without chaos. And
that's true.
So I think that's the master plan is we've got to whip up mechanical against us and everyone else against mechanical and then take them out. The only thing I disagree with him on is that it would only take me about 3.5 missed meals before just be chaos.
There was a coach of mine who said a favorite thing. He said, "All right, let's get a snack." Sorry.
Bubba, chaos. Yeah. Chaos. 3.5 meals, chaos.
Catfish, I think you completely convinced me. You're probably completely right because Bernard is the one who says, hey, this is ahead of schedule. Whatever food they receive from falling down the garbage chute, it's going to run out soon enough.
Right.
You're right
on that. And now he's going to put the judicial raiders, the ones that aren't the one. This is why they had to tactically retreat, Bubba, so that they could all be guarding the trash chutes.
Hell yeah. Now, another delicious scene. Once again, I feel like a lot of this podcast I've talked about stuff I didn't like. I loved this out in public. There are other people working here in IT, but this discussion between Bernard and Camille Sims. Bernard, I heard you helped Judge Meadows' murderers the other day. And then I was like, the other day? At the most, that was yesterday, right? What's going on? But anyway, she pushes back and she's like, well, gee, I really heard that it was supposed to be vigilante justice that was supposed to bring in the fugitives, not the raiders. And I saw a look on Bernard's face, which to me almost said, like, I'm enjoying this little back and forth BS we're doing amongst each other. And Bernard totally tries to get under her skin by saying, your husband must have loved this move. And she lies, or I think we're supposed to assume that she never told her husband, Robert. And she lies and said, oh, yeah, he knew. What do you think about this, Catfish?
Bubba, I don't think she's going to get off on a technicality because I think, even though I just watched it, you know how I forget things easily, but I think it was her excuse was even trickier than that. She was like, well, I saved these 2 citizens, and then I called for them to be taken care of, and then I didn't tell people where they were because I knew it was supposed to be vigilante justice. She was like, just kind of, it was a very tenuous, her logic.
Now, one of the people monitoring in the monitoring station, the one you mentioned, Catfish, the one we've seen before, his name is apparently Diego. And he reaches out to Sims and he tells Sims what's going on. Like, hey, dude, they've got a saw and they're going to, my people in the down deep, my aunt, I think he said he was, knows that they've got people with a saw. Sims marches to Bernard's office and Sims gets the wake up of his life. Lukas is in there. He's like, what are you doing in there?
You know what? Sims is going to get an even bigger wake up next episode.
Yeah. He really is. Isn't that great? This is another scene where I thought Sims doesn't have a radio. I know he's not a raider anymore, leader of the raiders anymore, but he's a judge. He's going to say, hey, I need to talk to Bernard. Instead, he finds his wife. This scene and these lines, again, I loved. He's like, listen, I got to tell people they're going to be cutting up through the floors. And Mrs. Sims says the line, there's nothing wrong with letting people suffer their own mistakes.
Hell yes.
Snap delicious. Robert's the one. Once again, he's the good guy. Maybe people are right, and she is Lady Macbeth. He's the one who's like, as long as those mistakes don't endanger everyone else, including our son. And then he comes up and says, I led the raiders, but I was never a raider myself. That's pretty much telling us as the viewers, his wife is the real ass kicker. And I love it. I love this scene. I love those juicy lines.
I mean, she's not just the ass kicker, Bubba, but She's the one who's coming up with all these ideas. Now, are they good ideas? That is to be seen. But she is the one who is moving the chess pieces and constantly losing her queen.
Now, Bernard, he is having his morgue monologue to Judge Meadows' corpse. And he's freaking out. He's like, listen, the last rebellion was 140 years ago, 140 years of stability. And I planned for everything. Then events forced me to factor you into the calculation. I'm truly sorry. This is great acting, which convinces me. Maybe you didn't like his scene with the VR headset and Judge's death. Did you like this, where we see him run a gam of emotions and then it ends with him steeling himself to be like, I've got to get order back? What did you think of this scene, the morgue monologue, Catfish?
Bubba, to be honest with you, as he started to do it, I was like, oh, let me arrange my notes for this show. So, to be fair, what I'm saying is I honestly can't comment on it because I thought the setup was funny, so I did other things during it, where he is monologuing to the corpse. I was like, so I can't give my opinion on it.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So it cuts to it, and the sheet there, the blanket there at the morgue, isn't covering Judge Meadows' face. Do you think they leave people's face not covered in the morgues in the silo? Or do you think Bernard went there, pulled the blanket down so he could see her face so he could tell this monologue? Either way, creepy.
I mean, at least he didn't pull it all the way down.
Edit. Now, how about this? For the craziest, wildest, what the heck twist we've got here. Lukas, he's not in the mines. He's under pressure to crack this code, and he's doing a good job of it. And Bernard is like, I hate this guy. He was friends with Juliette, that evil Juliette. You know what? I admire your work, kid. He's loving Lukas. He's like, hey, you're doing a great job trying to tackle this Caesar shift, Catfish. Have you ever heard of a Caesar shift? What do you think?
I actually have heard of a Caesar shift because I was DMing for a D&D game and wanted to put some puzzles in, and so I was reading a book on puzzles. So Caesar shift is a pretty easy puzzle, as you can see. But I thought the same thing. Bernard now digs Lukas. It's almost like he's like, and by the end, wants Lukas to be his new confidant. He needs to have someone to talk to. Lukas is smart. Now, he's not smart enough to realize what happened to Bernard's last confidant, but you can't blame him for wanting to stay out of the mines.
Lukas, he has later in the episode, his final scene in the episode, he's like, hey, guess what? This thing here that looks like a typo of silo, it is a silo. This thing here that looks like it's a typo of Caesar's daughter's name? So there's like two codes in this. But the only way somebody like Lukas, who isn't on the insider knowledge like Bernard is to see something, the legacy. And the legacy has been mentioned a couple of times this season. I haven't really pointed it out too much, but it is there if you watch these episodes again, or if you've been paying attention and hear people mention the legacy. And so to see the legacy, you've got to be on the inside. And so Bernard, because of possibly his feelings for Judge Meadows, possibly because obviously this hard drive has caused so much death and destruction and been unstable to the silo, he wants to solve it. And so, holy smoke, Lukas becomes Bernard's shadow for the sole purpose of seeing the legacy so he can crack this code. Holy smokes!
That is so cool. Now, the one thing that I thought of when I was watching it was maybe it's not just a shift, a Caesar shift, but then also it's in a different language. So I don't know whether the legacy has different languages or there's something else. But, Bubba, rules are rules. And so he's got to make him his shadow. Bernard is following the rules. As I said, I convinced you of earlier. Honestly, not only he makes him his shadow also because Bernard loves to monologue. And he prefers to do it in front of living people so that he knows they can talk, but he won't let them. Like, it's easy to not let Meadows talk. She can't talk. but he knows he can monologue in front of Lukas, and Lukas just has to sit there and take it.
Man, did you see this twist coming? Like, you could tell in the first scene of them together in this episode, he really did admire the work Lukas was doing. But this feels like such a giant jump. I think it leads us to our judicial debate.
All right, let's have it.
All rise. Judge Sims in the courtroom. The case in front of Judge Sims this week is last week. Catfish was on Team Bernard. He was a double B Bernard bro. This week, Bernard is monologuing to a corpse. He's having Odmundson as his number one in Judicial Raiders, and that guy sucks. So, 1 week later, Catfish, are you still on Team Bernard? That's the judicial debate. Let's hear it.
Well, but not only am I Bernard bro, but I'm also a Billings bro.
Wait.
Because I felt like what this episode showed us was that these are two guys, they both are living by a set of rules they've been given. And they're going to follow those rules. That's why, even though it seems silly to you that Bernard's like, I got to make Lukas my shadow before I can give him this information. And Billings is the same way. I have to follow the law. The only thing is that they're doing what they think is right.
Yes.
They have two separate sets of instructions. So it's you know, you could say Billings is a better guy because he's following the law, but Bernard is also following the rules he's been given to protect the silo. Now, does he follow those rules in sometimes creative ways? Yes.
Yeah, that's one way to say it. Okay, sure. Hey, you're not only Team Bernard, you're also on Team Billings. The fact that they are kind of currently working at different purposes against odds with each other, that's a sign that this is actually a really good episode and a good show. I love hearing that.
I love it. I love it. All right, Bubba. You know what's next is the double D's, double K's.
Oh, you mean the questions from Catfish that are dumb deeply?
Yes, that is exactly right. All right, question number one. We just talked about it. Was he just, when Sims says I was never a judicial raider, he's not saying was he saying he wasn't really a judicial raider, or just that his wife was the real badass? Because
literally he implies he was never, or he says he was never a raider, which is very hard to comprehend. We just saw it last year. You know, there was the ridiculous story on the mayor's murder, Deputy Marne's murder, where they, suddenly a judicial raider took the fall for it. And he was like, I'm a raider and I'm going to take your job. I'll be your shadow, Sims. And of course, that guy got killed. We saw Odmundson as pretty much Sims's right-hand man. He was a judicial raider and now he has Sims's job. It is hard to believe that they would give the leadership of the judicial raiders to somebody who's not a judicial raider.
Right.
Sims said in season 1 that he's like, my dad was a janitor and would come in this janitor supply closet, which is what we know, a supply closet which leads to the monitoring room. So you really kind of suspect, based on the story Sims tells, that his dad was at least a monitor and had power. Remember, he was bullied by a kid. That kid was suddenly sent to the down deep or something. It seems like there's no way that Sims shouldn't have been a judicial raider. But he says, I was never a raider. So what do you think? I mean, all I did is just restate the facts.
That was just my deeply dumb question. I was like, wait, he was never a raider. How can you be? You would think that, as opposed to, that the leader of IT would come from IT. Otherwise, we have a Trump cabinet situation where people are doing things they know nothing about.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Bubba, here's deeply dumb Catfish question number 2. Bernard is like, Lukas, I need you to decipher this note right away. And so he sends Lukas away and without any other information. And then Lukas is like, well, I tried to do all this code stuff and then it was too complex, so I made a program for it. And Bernard's like, that's great. By the way, this is called the Caesar shift. If Bernard knows about codes, why doesn't he give Lukas some code breaking ideas and just say, I mean, Bernard's got a little bit of time, and I figured he's just going to end up killing him anyway, so give him all the information you need.
Oh, yes.
Why doesn't he give Lukas more code breaking help?
Because I think of something that you know too. Bernard is doing this because he wants to know what's in this Salvador Quinn note. He wants the code broken. But to me, and this may be a deeply dumb Bubba blunder, but to me, it's also setting up that once he gets it, Lukas, he's going to get some blue food, right? He's going to get a VR headset, a viewing experience, right? Isn't that what you think?
No, I don't think he's going to get the experience.
No.
He might hand him the book on Georgia. That's all he'll get.
Wow. What do you guys think? Listeners, we may not have great answers for either of these catfish questions. Was Sims really never a raider? Is Lukas trying to solve this with Bernard giving him no help until after he's figured it out? Let us know. And hey, listeners, we've always been asking you, what do you think? Well, right now, we're going to go what you've told us you thought this week. A lot of it's feedback on last week's episode 5, but as always, plenty of smart thoughts about life in the silo and the show. Woo.
Speaking of smart thoughts, Bubba, our first feedback is from Christopher Walken here with an I. Smart.
Ooh.
Says, awesome video, thanks. Been listening along to your videos this season, been loving it. Why don't you have more subs? Christopher, let everybody know.
Yeah, boy. And also, Zach the Great said, great review. Thank you so much. We love positive comments. Now, we were both higher on this episode than we've been, it feels like, in a couple of weeks. But one of the questions that we asked, really starting at episode 2 of season 2, was, is this a slow pace? Is the show going too slow when we want to hit the ground running? And one of our friends, W. Axel Foley, who hosts the great DVR podcast, he wrote to us and said, season 2 is a slow start. I'm with Catfish on this slow start. Does the show think they're getting 8 seasons to tell this story? They got to speed things up.
Well, Bubba, this is one thing we could, this is not really a spoiler, but we can allude to this. I think we talked about this I can't remember whether we talked about it on the pod last week or after we finished the pod. How much are they going to do of these books in the 4 seasons? Are they going to cover the first and the third book? They can't possibly just be covering the first book.
Boy, we don't know, but hopefully, our good buddy Axel, if you're listening, hopefully this picked up and you're ready to kind of have a sprint in these final 4 episodes. I'm ready for a sprint.
All right, and my favorite Uncle Vegetable, says 5 episodes and we're still going so slowly.
Now, Uncle Vegetable, you did get tossed down the garbage chute, so be strong.
A wild ride tonight, even better than the ride that Knox and Shirley took last week. Sutton Daniel says, great video. I love your insight and comments. I agree there are amazing moments, but overall these episodes don't feel like a 10-episode season, more like a 20 to 25 episode season.
Wow.
The editing on the episode was awful. This episode would have been better if they paced it and cut to the different storylines differently. 6.5 out of 10, but it could have been 8 out of 10, I think, with better editing.
Ooh, thank you, Sutton. Now, again, these comments are about last week's episode 5, and a longtime loyal listener that we love, Nick Fortuna, who's at Nicholas Fortuna on Twitter. They wrote, episode 5 of Solo felt like a big, episode 5 of Silo. Episode 5 of Silo felt like a big tease of what it wants to show us, but the show knows it's got 5 more episodes left to fill. Little hints of answers, little nods to more questions. I'm still really enjoying the show, but it feels like the breaks are being applied to fill 10 episodes. Well, once again, Nick, write us back. Hopefully you like this episode more. The breaks still are on there a little bit, but I think it is picking up pace.
And Gen X Cat Mom at All Mod Cons at Blue Sky says, Silo Season 2, Episode 5, I rate 8 triple S's.
Wait, triple S's?
Scarily shouting Solo. He was completely unhinged.
Yep.
What is Camille up to? She continued to surprise. Bernard's various machinations were intricate and fascinating to watch coalesce. He's way more intriguing and fleshed out than in the book. And I agree with that.
No book spoilers. You do agree with that, Catfish?
I do agree with that.
I would say that I've kind of said this on the non-spoilery talk of Book Talk, but Bernard is a character that it's third-person kind of point of view. And so Bernard never really gets that in the book. he does have a lot of scenes of shading, but you're right, not like in the show where you can really see Tim Robbins acted out so well.
I mean, to be honest, the only person that I think was more fleshed out, at least so far in the book, was Lukas. And as we discussed on last week's, maybe it was a spoiler, but this isn't really a spoiler, is that I didn't really like his character in the book. You did.
I loved it.
So, yeah, the show's doing a good job at that. That's part of the reason why it's going so slow.
Jacob gave episode 5 a 7. He wrote, not as good as the last episode, but better. He says, like you, Catfish, he's on Bernard's team.
Say it, you're a Bernard bro.
Man, Jacob says Bernard ought to know what's up. We really don't have many characters to follow. I agree with you, Jacob. I do believe there's sections or floors of tech and people. No one knows everything but Bernard. Sims can't be all there is. I think, but hope not. This is how Jacob believes the season's going to end. So here's some Silo speculation from Jacob. He writes, Juliette will show up on the Silo 18 view screen looking into the camera, and that'll be the cut as it's a bunch of chaos. And he believes that season 3 will be a rebellion in our Silo. Ooh,
right.
I think,
love it.
Jacob, I think that could be it. That definitely, even though to me it's like taking a long time to get something exciting like that, I think that would make a good season ender for season 2.
I agree. Link Hogthrob at Blue Sky says, I've been waiting for someone to rappel over the railing. You'd have thought they would have had a homemade version for just such escape needs. Now, Link, my question to you is, I think any kind of alternate transportation would be illegal. You know what? You're right, though. They did not really think about how much trouble they could cause by going up, and that they might need a quick leap down. Little bungee jump.
Heck yeah.
All right, Sayali at Free Palestine. I'm doing this so bad. Sayali Free Palestine at Yapayali at Blue Sky says, just watch the episode 5. I remember Bubba saying, you wish you had a relationship like Camille Sims. Imagine my shock at that scene between them in this episode. I had guessed Walker would be the first one to go with a 4 like Catfish, but I'm fairly surprised she hasn't died in the stampede. But she says, I don't dislike Walker. So that's where we disagree.
Here we go. Now, Emily Fox wrote, oh boy, this is tough. Emily Fox wrote, I'm so bored this year. Don't care at all who Solo is. I feel like Rebecca Ferguson is hardly on this show anymore. Emily wrote this after episode 5. Wait till she sees episode 6 where Rebecca Ferguson really not in it much. Woo. Emily, if you're listening, once again, we love all opinions, especially opinions that are different from ours. Write back and tell us what you thought about episode 6, which really doesn't have Rebecca Ferguson.
Now, Emily, I'm just going to say, if I was going to guess, I would guess that the next episode, the time between Silo 17 and Silo 18 is going to be exactly reversed. I think it's going to be all Silo 17 next week with 2 minutes of Silo 18. Now, Mr. Chocolate Giddy-Up says, Judge is just a figurehead position. That's why I was saying, why doesn't Sims happy with Judge? Because I thought it was like a triumvirate. But Mr. Chocolate Giddy-Up disagrees. He says, Sims could have never been a shadow. He is pretty much just a dumb jock. He never questions, just does. He couldn't figure out the hard drive or what to do with or fix it. But you know what?
What?
Camille could.
Now, I want to thank this person, Jay Garrick the Flash, who said, hey, Bubba, you had a nice shout out to The Wire. Thank you so much. And he said, great content on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Love it. Peter Conley from Australia says, apart from Billings, does anyone else have the symptoms? How rare is it? And that's funny, Bubba. That's what I was thinking tonight when I realized that it was just the herbs that were giving him presumably, if it's against the pact, they do something with those people, perhaps send them to the mines until they collapse.
Give them more herbs. Our good friend, a great follow on Blue Sky, is at Patman on Blue Sky. Patman writes, comrades, occasionally you ask the podcast listeners what we think, and once in a while you ask us where you guys might be wrong. 2 things. On rare occasions, and it's very rare, one of the hosts might say something like Bernard the Judge, which is of course wrong. He's the mayor, at least the temporary mayor, and I encourage you two to focus. We will, Patman, we will. Second thing he writes is, on a recent podcast, Bubba said that it takes 3 points to make a triangle, 3 points to make a wheel. Okay, the triangle is correct. The wheel statement is, and then his message cut off for some reason. I couldn't copy the rest of his message, but thank you so much for that, Pat.
But just to say, Pat, man, I could have been the one that said the judge, but I will say that I believe in real time last week I took Bubba to task for the three parts of the wheel.
We're running.
All right, okay. No Interleaving says, I really enjoy the Silo TV series, but there are some logic gaps that drive me crazy.
Yep.
For example, the jump with the steel cable from what seems like 60 meters. Shouldn't that be fatal? Americans don't know the answer to that question because we have no idea what 60 meters is. About 180 feet. Yeah. At the end of the episode, we see that Juliette is seriously injured. The wound goes deep into the muscle, and the red edges suggest an infection. Based on this, I think in the next episode, 2 characters might die from internal injuries, fractures, or brain trauma caused by the jump, and Juliette might succumb to her infected wound. But no, because Solo knows how to make antibiotics. And why does Robert's wife make such a big move behind his back? What's her motivation to help the others? That is a fascinating question. I think she knows she is both the brains and the brawn of this partnership. Lukas must know that as soon as he retrieves the data from the hard drive, he'll probably end up back in the mines. He could just make up information instead.
Feels like Bernard doesn't have time to solve it, but if Lukas just kind of made up a solution, Bernard would not see the logic of it and may not accept that. You know what I mean?
I completely agree, and I think every day above the mine is a good day.
Now, Reckless, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Reckless Inc. maybe? Reckless Inc.
Sure.
Let me know your handle. They write, I'm curious about the story of Solo in 17, but I'm much more interested in what's going to happen to Silo 18. If Juliette doesn't make it back, I don't like it much when they cut to the others in 18 without Juliette, but I get it. Your recap of the Silo show is my favorite. The first episode I listened to, and I'm stating the obvious, but these 2 guys, Bubba and Catfish, they're great. Make me wonder if they worked on a radio, TV, or some other podcast. Either way, thanks guys. Viva la revolution. Solo rules. Wow.
Love it. Web Squizzard says, I'm so used to hearing that ding-ding Silo music sting throughout your podcast that I reckon when you 2 meet up for beer in real life, it starts playing. My Catfish question is, where does the groundwater get pumped out to?
Out to sea? How about, what if it just gets pumped into Solo Silo? What if that's in 18? They're like, we got another flood. Let's pump it. Wonder where it goes. It's Solo's like, it keeps going up. Why?
No, what's nice is it just goes around in the circle. It goes from 17 to 18. They pump it to 19 to 20. It just goes around in a big circle. All right. Hobo Deluxe, the 007 says, I don't think Solo is the original Solo. I think the original Solo is still in Silo 17 somewhere. All right.
Now that would be a wonderful twist, Hobo Deluxe. So good. Zach writes, well, I think Sims was angry because his whole career, Judge was just a puppet, and he had power over Judge Meadows. And so it is like it's a outward-facing promotion, but in reality, you're getting knocked down a level. That makes sense, Zach.
All right, at No Pico, Jake says, I'm with Catfish. I don't know why, but I'm Teen Bernard. Say it, Bernard, bro.
Here we go. Oh, no.
He's the Solo. He is the Solo. Willing to die for the order. See?
Yeah.
Sims' wife is sneaking. It's going to cost her, and she will get a double B.
Double B.
Bernard beat down. 7 out of 10 for me. Solo needs therapy. Shaking my head. Dr. Nichols is fed up with Bernard, and I loved it. I love this podcast. Thank you, Pico Jake.
Thank you so much. We got about 4 more comments, so let's burn through them. Wayne Rogers says, Billings, who's the consummate disciple of the pack, has been suffering deep angst since becoming sheriff. And so that's 100% true. He says, I have no idea where the showrunners are taking us with the Solo ID storyline. I hope there's a big payoff because I find that storyline a slogfest. He says sci-fi and dystopian genres rely on suspension of disbelief. I did a back-on-the-matchbook calculation of how long it would actually take to go from the bottom of the silo to the top floor, 143 sets of stairs. That's about a 4.33-mile trek, and the average pace on flat terrain is just 2.5 miles per hour. So you're going up the steps, maybe you'd be going up 1 mile per hour. So he thinks it takes 6 to 8 hours to get from the bottom to the top. You got to be in good shape. Wow, love that feedback, Wayne. Thank you.
And also the part where Wayne said, I'm loving this podcast.
Yes.
Burnt Orange Horn says, my best guess about fake Solo's identity crisis is that Russell was his father, and Russell paid more attention to his shadow than to his son. This made fake Solo jealous, and when real Solo died, he assumed the identity in his mind. He might have even had a hand in real Solo's death. I love this, Bubba. Some people are really, even though I'm with the people who don't care too much about Solo, we've got some people who are really fascinated with and are really trying to puzzle through Solo's origins.
Let me say I have my own thought about it, but I say that in the book spoiler section because there is a bit of my Solo identity speculation that is a bit based on the books. But I love that one. Our good buddy Trouble Follows is getting frustrated. They write, so instead of getting anybody with a good arm to throw a firebomb, Sims gets a hacker to do it because hashtag great use of skills. Makes sense. And then he uses Lukas to put together a smashed hard drive in his office. And he's the one who smashed the hard drive. Not to do it somewhere else, but in his office. Hashtag unbelievable. Oh boy, how does the dropped winch not destroy something or somebody in the down deep? People in the down deep must know to not walk in the open area of the atrium. There's always stuff falling.
You know, Trouble Follows, he was really following our lead last week. We were asking exasperated questions. But Ignacio98 says, I enjoyed episode 5 because they're getting back to a fast pacing of events. After Dr. Nichols said no to Bernard, I thought he was going to say something like, what if I told you she might be alive? Oh, no, Bernard. Yes. Bernard only has one confidant at a time, and now it's Lukas. Traveling in the silo in the TV show feels inconsistent and compared to the book feels like a video game instant transport. But I honestly don't mind at all because otherwise each episode would be 1 hour long of them just walking the stairs or, as the calculations we saw, 6 to 8 hours. All right, our last piece of feedback is from R.G. Ricardo Gonzalez. Since the mayor previously mentioned he has his own suit, I wonder if Solo has one in the vault that he can use to bargain with Juliette to solve the flooding issue or to leave with her later. Fascinating.
Very smart question, Ricardo Gonzalez. And I think this episode kind of answers so much. Solo wants his silo pumped free of water. Whew. We're going to go to, once again, not book spoilers so much, but show spoilers and your spoiler feedback in a bit. If you want to drop out now, be sure to join us next week when we're talking about episode 7, The Dive. Lukas is assigned a mission. Mechanical sends a powerful message. Juliette embarks on a perilous descent and confronts a new danger. For everybody here at The Cleaning Podcast, my name's Bubba. You can find me on social media at FittenTrim. That's FITTENTRIM at FittenTrim on social media.
And I'm Catfish. You can hit me up at Instagram and Blue Sky at G to the Man, GEETOTHEMAN. And we'll talk to you next week on The Cleaning.